Good evening, how's everybody doing? Great to be learning with you on a Tuesday, Yom Shlishi. Let's light up the darkness. Who's in the house? So good to be back. Had a wonderful time in Boston and Cambridge. Played the movie at Harvard. It was a nice homecoming. And it was just a lovely, lovely event. And I missed you, and I'm so glad to be back. Renee in Indiana, Stephen in New Hampshire, Bill in Mid-Missouri, Melissa in Great Neck, Bella in Florida, Joseph in Sierra Nevada, Yehud in South Carolina, Lucy in Minnesota, Shandora in the Bronx. Yosef, glad you like the Lair House, my favorite place to eat and learn. I posted about it on Facebook and Instagram. Fascinating place. Kosher dairy restaurant in a base midrash, right? So in a Jewish library, a house of study. It was a really cool place in Somerville, Massachusetts. So if you're ever in the Boston area and looking for fantastic fish and chips and lots of other good dishes too, and surrounded by, classic Jewish texts in a really convivial atmosphere, I recommend it. Gail in Kansas City, Guy in Ohio, Sharon in New Jersey, and Lorraine in Texas, Aoife in Florida, Frank in San Pedro, Chaim in Florida, Alan in New York City, Marie in Freeport. Over there on the YouTube side, welcome everybody. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'akol nivra. Okay, great to come back on a key DAF. Wonderful. Page 99 here in Tractate Sanhedrin, the 24th volume of the Talmud. Continuing our discussion of Mishna number 1 in chapter 11. Am I like a little bit off center here? Let's make an adjustment. Generally, we're talking about the world to come. Who has a place in the world to come? When will the messianic age arrive? That's what we were talking about before I left. And now we're going to talk about some more details of the messianic age, right? So again, the world to come, two meanings: the world of souls, where we come from and where we return when we leave this world, but also the messianic age when there's going to be the resurrection of the dead. So that's another stage in the journey of the soul, as it were. So here we are on page 99a, right near the top. It is taught in a baraisa, and the reason this is a key daf is there's some very famous teachings that we're going to encounter today, and it's colorful and interesting all the way through. It is taught in a baraisa. Rabbi Eliezer says the messianic era will be 40 years long. As it is stated, 40 years will I strive with the generation. Psalm 95, verse 10. The 40 years of strife will be with the non-Jews, followed by the glory days of Moshiach. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says the messianic era will last 70 years. As it is stated, and it shall come to pass on that day that Tyre, T-Y-R-E, shall be forgotten 70 years. According to the days of one king, from Isaiah 23:15. So in this context, one, echad, means unique, meyuchad. And which is the unique king? Well, you must say that this is a reference to Moshiach, the Messiah. So Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi says, the Messianic era will last 3 generations. As always, we see lots of different voices, perspectives, and opinions here in the Gemara. And we have no, obviously, definitive proof. No one knows. This is all very mysterious. But our sages are deriving from Scripture and its clues. What they are guessing, or what they are, what they are deriving, will be the length of the Messianic age. So Rebbe says it will be 3 generations. As it is stated, may they fear you as long as the sun and moon endure throughout the generations. So here, generations, dor durim. Dor dorim, right? So again, dor is generation. So dor dorim is a way of, dorim is generations. So the generation of the generations, what are we talking about? That invites interpretation. So it could be translated as throughout the generations from Psalm 72, verse 5. Now, dor is singular, dorim is plural. So this makes a total of 3 generations, according to Rebbe. Rabbi Hillel says, there is no Moshiach coming for the Jewish people, as they already ate from him, as all the prophecies relating to Moshiach were already fulfilled during the days of Hezekiah. Obviously, we don't hold by that because the world has not been fundamentally transformed. And so, in fact, Rav Yosef says, may the master forgive Rabbi Hillel for stating matters with no basis. With regard to Hezekiah, when was his reign? It was during the first temple period. Whereas Zechariah ben Bericha, the prophet, prophesied during the second temple period. And he said, rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king will come to you. He is just and victorious, lowly, and riding upon a donkey, and upon a colt, the foal of a donkey, from Zechariah 9:9. And we said, before I went away, that if, there's that, and we're continuing that classic disagreement between Rabbi Eliezer, who says Mashiach will come when the Jewish people repent, when we all turn back to God and merit to have Mashiach come, or versus Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, who says, well, yeah, but there is a designated time for Mashiach to come, even if we don't deserve it. At some point, he will come. And so some related teachings were, well, if we merit that he should come, or that he should come sooner, then he'll come, in a blaze of glory. But if he's going to come, when we haven't merited it, but just a designated time arrived, then he'll come in a much more humble manner, riding a donkey. But then there was one of the sages, and I'm not sure who it was, said, well, are you kidding? The donkey of Moshiach is not just any donkey. It's like it's a glorious donkey, the donkey of many colors. Okay. But the point being here, where, Rabbi Hillel said, well, yeah, all the prophecies about Mashiach already happened during King Hezekiah's rule. And then they're saying, well, but there were prophecies about Mashiach coming later than when Hezekiah was king and when he lived. So obviously that prophecy wasn't talking about him, and that just discredits the whole idea that Hezekiah could have been the Messiah and, he was the Messiah but didn't change the world. That's why we don't hold by. We don't buy that. And this is further evidence of that. Now it is taught in another Baraisa. Rabbi Eliezer says, the Messianic era will be 40 years long. And it is written here with regard to the 40-year sojourn of the children of Israel in the wilderness. And he, meaning God, afflicted you. This is Moses talking. And he afflicted you and suffered you to hunger and fed you with manna. Deuteronomy 8:3. And it is written there in Psalm 90, make us glad according to the days that you afflicted us, the years that we saw evil. So that would suggest that just as we spend 40 years, wandering in the wilderness, the Messianic age itself will be 40 years long. Rabbi Dosa says, the Messianic era will last 400 years. It is written here with regard to the covenant of the pieces. This was in Abraham's time. And they shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years, from Genesis 15:13. And it is written there, make us glad according to the days you afflicted us. So if we were afflicted for 400 years, then we will rejoice in the Messianic age for 400 years, according to this view. Rebbe says the Messianic era will last 365 years, corresponding to the number of days in the solar year. As it is stated, for the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. Isaiah 63. And the Gemara asks, what is the meaning of the phrase, for the day of vengeance is in my heart? And Rabbi Yochanan says that it means that God said, I reveal the day of vengeance to my heart, but I did not reveal it to my limbs, as it were. This is obviously a metaphoric kind of anthropomorphosis of Hashem. So what does this mean metaphorically? It means that God knows the date. He knows when Moshiach will come, but he never revealed it publicly. He never stated explicitly. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, also known as Reish Lakish, says that it means that God said, I revealed this secret to my heart, but I did not reveal it to the ministering angels. Avimi, the son of Rabbi Bahu, taught, the Messianic era for the Jewish people will last 7,000 years. As it is stated, and as the bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so shall God rejoice over you, from Isaiah 62. Well, the bridegroom rejoices over the bride for 7 days, and the day of the Holy One, blessed be He, is 1,000 years, as we derived in our last class. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says the duration of the Messianic era is like the duration of the period that runs from the day the world was created until now. Now being an optimistic view of when Mashiach will come. But what they're saying is, right now we're in the year 5785 from the creation of the world. So Mashiach came today, then the Messianic age would be another 5,785 years. Whenever Mashiach comes, right, so according to this view, the Messianic age that ensues will be as long as the age of the world at that time. From where do we derive this? As it is stated, that your days may be multiplied in the days of your children, in the land that the Lord swore to your fathers to give them, as the days of heaven upon the earth. And that's from the second paragraph of the Shema. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says the duration of the Messianic era is like the duration of the period that runs from the days of Noah, right? Noah in the ark, Noach, until now, i.e., the day when Mashiach will come, as it is stated with regard to redemption. For this is as the seas of Noah to me, as I have sworn that the seas of Noah shall no more go over the earth, so have I sworn that I will not be angry with you nor rebuke you, from Isaiah 54. And when he says the seas of Noah, ki me Noah, the words ki me can be understood as one word, kime, meaning like the days of. New subject. Rabbi Chia bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says, in their prophecies with regard to the redemption and the end of days, all the prophets prophesied only about the Messianic era. But with regard to the world to come, the reward is not quantifiable. As it states, no eye has seen it, God, aside from you, who will do for those who await him. Isaiah 64:3. So now we can either be speculating on what the Messianic era will be like, or we could be speculating on what the world of souls is like. The point being that whatever the world to come is, no one has seen it. So, we're only guessing from certain words written in Scripture, but we can't imagine what it's going to be like, other than to say that it's amazing, right? It's some kind of a paradise. So the Gemara notes, and this statement disagrees with the opinion of Shmuel. As Shmuel says, the difference between this world and the Messianic era is only with regard to servitude to foreign kingdoms alone, as they will leave Eretz Yisrael. So according to this, Shmuel is saying that when the Messianic age arrives, right, and there is resurrection of the dead, so while we do say elsewhere that the world will be as filled with the knowledge of God as waters fill the sea, nevertheless, it will be this world, this physical world, and it won't be so different, except that the Jews won't be subjugated and hated and, despised and attacked by their enemies around the world. Everyone will recognize that, we have this relationship with God and we've been telling the truth all this time. So that aspect of it will be gone. But otherwise, this world will, this world during the Messianic age will not be so different from this world now. That's according to Shmuel. And Rabbi Chia bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says all the prophets prophesied their prophecies of consolation only with regard to penitence. But with regard to the reward of the completely righteous, as it is stated, no eye has seen it, God aside from you. So now what they're saying is, well, maybe you can comprehend what the world will be like in the messianic age, or in the world of souls for that matter, for the penitents, right? Meaning the Baalei Teshuvah, the people who have returned to God. But for the people who've been completely righteous all their lives, there's some kind of, tremendous reward. Or either people who've been, connected to God all their lives, they have some kind of extraordinary reward that the ones who've made an atonement and returned to God don't have. Or more likely, especially given where this conversation's going, what they mean is those saints, right? Not just people who've been religious all their lives, but those very small number of people, possibly only 36, possibly fewer, who are completely righteous, right? The people for whom the world stands. The reason that the world continues to exist is because of certain people who are, this tiny number of people who are completely righteous. So they have some kind of reward coming to them that is unfathomable, absolutely unfathomable. But for the vast majority of people who are connected to God, whether they've been that way all their lives or whether they return to God, there is a paradise awaiting them, but it's at least fathomable, right? That's the idea here. So the Gemara notes, and the opinion expressed in this statement disagrees with the opinion of Rabbi Abahu, who holds that penitents, right, Baalei Teshuvah, those who return to God, are superior to the righteous. In this case, we're talking about people who've just been religious all their lives, who've been connected to God all their lives. As Rabbi Abahu says, that Rav says, in the place where penitents stand, or where the Baal Teshuvah, right? The word, this is a phrase you should know. Baal Teshuvah means master of atonement or master of return. But it would it's a phrase that specifically refers to Jews who were disconnected, weren't keeping Shabbos, weren't keeping kosher, and who returned to God and to an observant Jewish life, right? It's a Jew who becomes a Torah Yid, who becomes a Torah Jew and is keeping Shabbos and is eating kosher. That person is known as a Baal Teshuvah, and plural, Baalei Teshuvah. So this phrase, very, very famous saying right here, and this is the home address for it, Sanhedrin 99, where the Baal Teshuvah stands, even the tzaddik cannot go, right? Even the tzaddik cannot go. Are we really talking about the completely righteous people, those saints? I mean, that it says tzaddik, right? It says tzaddik. So it doesn't just say somebody who's been religious all their life, who we normally refer to by the kind of cute acronym FFB, means from birth. But what it actually says is there the tzaddik cannot stand. So it does kind of imply somebody who is completely righteous. So what are we talking about? Somebody who was just a party animal, eating anywhere, doing anything, comes back to God, and he's at such a holy and exalted level that where he is, the level that he's on, even the tzaddik cannot go. This is a very extreme statement, right? And as we'll see, it gets qualified a little bit. But in its colorfulness, in its, being a little bit extreme, there's for sure an important truth here, right? And certainly any rabbis who are engaged in kiruv work, right, helping Jews come back to Torah, will, always bring out this very, very popular saying that where the Baal Teshuvah stands, the tzaddik cannot, right? Where the Baal Teshuvah stands, the tzaddik cannot go, or the tzaddik just cannot stand in that place. Why? Because the tzaddik, who's been righteous all his life, he is lacking one mitzvah, which is returning to God, right? He never was away so that he could return. So that mitzvah he doesn't have. Moreover, he never knew the temptations of a person, who's been out in the world. When you become a BT, a Baal Teshuvah, Okay, so now you start keeping kosher. And before you didn't, right? So somebody who was from birth, he's only eaten kosher restaurants all his life. But a BT, so we had the joy of being a foodie and having the ability to eat in the millions of restaurants that the world has to offer. All those Michelin star restaurants, incredibly 5-star, super popular, the hot restaurant where no one can get a table, where all the glitterati and the celebrities go because the food is so good, and celebrity chefs and Wolfgang Puck, and having that incredible experience, and then you say, well, no, sounds great, but my master in heaven said that I have to eat kosher, and so I can only eat in a place that has a hechsher that is kosher, where the food is kosher, and so I'm going to knock out 99.999% of the restaurants in the world. Well, you just you gave up a lot. That's a real sacrifice, and so that's something that the Baal Tshuva kind of offers up to Hashem, and Hashem truly appreciates, right? It's something that you give of yourself. It's a real sacrifice that you can make in furtherance of deepening that love and that beautiful relationship with God and with Torah. And there's a famous kind of joke that's often, not a joke, a true story, to illustrate this little point, that there was I can't remember the name, maybe somebody knows the story and can remind me in the comments, but there was a famous Hasidic Rebbe, so a few hundred years ago, who was traveling in Eastern Europe, winter time, with his student, who was a Baal Tshuva. And they got to, like a river, a frozen river, but it wasn't clear how thick the ice was. So the student says to his Rebbe, who was quite heavy, the Rebbe was pretty fat, let the Rebbe remain on shore. We speak to our teachers, our masters, our Rebbes in the third person in this way, and say, let the Rebbe remain on shore, and I will venture out and see if the ice is solid. So he takes a few steps out, and he realizes that, well, the ice is thick enough to hold him because he's thin, but probably not, thick enough to hold the Rebbe. So he comes back and he says, where the Baal Tshuva stands, the tzaddik cannot go. Right? And it's just the perfect verse, or the perfect sugya to quote from the Talmud in that situation. Right? Colorful story. Okay, so that's right here. Right? Rabbi Abahu says that Rav says, right? And let's just say it in Hebrew, Makom Shabale Teshuva Omdin Sham Tzadikim Einan Omdim Sham, right? So in a place where the Baalei Teshuva stands, where the penitents stand, even the completely righteous is how it's translated here, even the completely righteous do not stand. And where does Rav get this? As it is stated, Isaiah 57:19, peace upon him who is far and him who is near. Right? So from Isaiah 57:19, what does it mean? Peace upon him who is far and who is near. You would think that the one who is closer to God would be mentioned first and thereby have some precedence. But the one who is far is mentioned first. And so Rav is learning out from that the one who was far and came near, right? That's the Baal Tshuva. Somehow he has some kind of a precedence, occupies some kind of level of holiness and nearness to God that even the completely righteous do not occupy. Right, so here Rav explains, peace and greeting is extended first to him who is far, and only thereafter is peace extended, right, from the Holy One, blessed be He, to him who is near. And what is the meaning of the term upon him who is far? It means one who was initially far, i.e. the Baal Tshuva. And what is the meaning of the term him who is near? It means one who was initially near and continues to be near at present, i.e. the tzaddik, right? In this case, the completely righteous individual. And Rabbi Yochanan says, upon him who is far is referring to one who is distant from transgression, meaning the tzaddik. and him who is near, this is referring to one who is near transgression and distance himself from it. That's the Baal Tshuva, right? The tzaddik never came near to sinning. But the Baal Tshuva was a sinner, was close to sin, it was part of his life, and he distanced himself from it. But so that's why Rabbi Yochanan would say, no, don't kid yourself. The tzaddik has a higher and loftier, holier place than the Baal Tshuva. So there's a nice little dispute, machlokes, between Rabbi Yochanan and Rav. Now, Rabbi Chia bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says, all of the prophets prophesied their prophecies of consolation only with regard to one who values wisdom and therefore marries his daughter to a Torah scholar, and to one who conducts business on behalf of a Torah scholar, and to one who utilizes his wealth to benefit a Torah scholar from his property in some other way. But the prophets did not describe the extent of the reward for Torah scholars themselves, whose reward is not quantifiable, not fathomable. Their reward is so great. If we get such a huge reward in the next world for supporting Torah study and helping Torah scholars to thrive in this world, so how much more is the reward for the Torah scholars themselves? As it is stated, no eye has seen it, God aside from you. And the Gemara asks, what reward is indicated in the phrase, no eye has seen it? And Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, this is wine preserved in its grapes from the 6 days of creation, right? Again, it's a metaphor, but the reward that we're talking about is something that God conceived of as his reward for Adam and Eve, for the human, from the very beginning. But then Adam fell along with Eve in the eating from the prohibited tree of knowledge of good and evil, and so they never tasted that reward. But for these completely righteous people, or for the Torah scholars, according to this view, the reward that is awaiting for them is that reward that God drew up from the very beginning. And Reish Lakish says, what is this reward? This is Eden, which no eye has ever seen. And if you say, where did Adam the first man live, if not in Eden? The answer is that he lived in the garden. Unless you say the garden is Eden, right? We call it the Garden of Eden, but he's making a distinction. He says, well, there's Eden and there's the garden, and they're not the same thing. So Adam lived in the garden. He never saw Eden. That's the actual supernal paradise. Unless you say the garden is Eden and they are indistinguishable, the verse states, and a river emerged from Eden to irrigate the garden. Genesis 2:10. Pretty good proof that Eden and the garden are not the same. The Mishnah teaches that those who have no share in the world to come include. Okay, we've been on a long digression about the nature of the messianic age and when it will come, who will have a place, who won't. When we started talking about like Bilam, now we're going to go back and talk. We were talking about who has a place in the world to come, who has a share or a chelik, a portion in the world to come. And then we went off of very lengthy digressions, right? We started this chapter on page 90, and here we are on page 99, and we're actually now returning to the Mishnah and continuing the discussion of the Mishnah, right? So our Mishnah number 1 here in chapter 11, teaches those who have no share in the world to come include, right? We started that Mishnah by saying all Israel has a place in the world to come, except those who say or do certain things, and now we're getting back to that. So the ones who do not have a portion in the world to come include one who says the Torah did not originate from heaven. Right? The one we were discussing before is one who says there is no world to come. Right? So, well, that's a kind of natural consequence that if you don't think there's a world to come, you could lose your place in the world to come. Now, the next one. Someone who says that the Torah did not originate from heaven. right? That the Torah is not divinely authored and it's just, some people wrote it. That is a way to lose, claiming that, right? You not being a skeptic, but if you say that, you are convinced that the authorship of the Torah is just by people, this is a way to lose your place in the world to come. You can atone from having held this point of view and regain your place in the world to come. But if you're one of these, atheist skeptics who goes around telling everybody that, I know who wrote the Torah, and it was these people and these people, and you're sure of it, and you die, while still holding that view, could lose lose eternity in the world to come. And one who says the Torah did not originate from heaven. So the sages taught in a Baraisa that with regard to the verse, because he has despised the word of the Lord and has breached his commandment, that soul shall be excised, his iniquity shall be upon him. Numbers 15:31. This is a reference to one who says the Torah did not originate from heaven. Alternatively, one can explain because he has despised the word of the Lord. This is a reference to an Epicurus, a heretic, who treats the word of God with contempt. Alternatively, one can explain, or sometimes translate as an apostate. Alternatively, one can explain because he has despised the word of the Lord. This is a reference to one who interprets the Torah inappropriately and has breached his commandment. This is a reference to one who breaches the covenant of flesh, meaning a Jewish man who refuses to circumcise his foreskin. Shall be excised, hikaret, right? Karis, that we talked about many times. This is death at the hands of the heavenly court. And here doubled, hikaris, tikaris, right? So there's a doubling for emphasis here. So hikaris refers to being excised in this world, right? Dying prematurely. And tikaris refers to being excised from the world to come, losing your portion in the world to come. From here, Rabbi Lazar Hamodai says, with regard to one who desecrates consecrated items, for example, intentionally rendering them impure, and one who treats the intermediate days of the festivals with contempt. We're coming up on Pesach, begins Saturday night, Passover. So chol hamoed, the intermediate days between the first 2 days, which are a full holiday, and the last 2 days, which are a full holiday. The in-between days are known as chol hamoed. It's permitted to do many of the kinds of work that we do during the week, but those intermediate days also have a festival quality. And if you just, pretend that there's no festival going on, this is a very serious thing. If you're contemptuous of chol hamoed, you could lose your place. And one who breaches the covenant of Abraham, our forefather, and one who reveals aspects in the Torah that are not in accordance with halacha, and one who humiliates another in public. Wow. That's on the level of these kinds of heresies. If you just humiliate your fellow, that could cause you to lose your place in eternity. Even if he has to his credit Torah study and good deeds, he has no share in the world to come if he humiliates others. It is taught in another Baraisa, because he has despised the word of the Lord. This is a reference to one who says the Torah did not originate from heaven. And even if one says the entire Torah originated from heaven, except for this verse, i.e. any one verse, claiming that the Holy One, blessed be he, did not say that verse, but rather Moses just added it on his own, this is included in the category of because he has despised the word of the Lord. And even if one says the entire Torah originated from heaven, except for this inference inferred by the sages, or except for this kal v'chomer inference, or except for this verbal analogy, this is included in the category of because he has despised the word of the Lord. In other words, somebody who says, well, I believe God wrote the written Torah, but the oral Torah, that's just, made up. No, then you're denying the divine character of the whole Torah, which includes both the written Torah and the oral Torah given at Mount Sinai, and the oral tradition which has stretched since then. That is divinely inspired, although humans are contributing to it. It is taught in a Baraisa that Rabbi Meir would say, with regard to one who studies Torah and does not teach it to others, this person is included in the category of he has despised the word of the Lord, as his conduct indicates that he does not consider the word of God significant enough to teach others. This is why the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, if you've only learned Aleph Beis, the first two letters of the alphabet, but there's somebody who doesn't know those two letters, teach it to him, teach it to her. Rabbi Nassim says, anyone who does not pay the requisite attention to the Mishnah and does not consider it essential halacha is included in the category of because he has despised the word of the Lord. And Rabbi Nehorai says, anyone for whom it is possible to engage in Torah study and who nevertheless does not engage in its study is included in the category of because he has despised the word of the Lord. Rabbi Yishmael says this verse, because he has despised the word of the Lord, is a reference to an idol worshiper. The Gemara asks, from where in the verse is this inferred? The Gemara explains it is derived from a verse as the school of Rabbi Yishmael taught, because he has despised the word of the Lord, word in this case, devar. This is a reference to one who treats with contempt a statement, dibur, that was stated to Moses at Sinai and heard by all the Jewish people. I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods besides me. Right? So maybe all these extreme, like, whoa, like, if you're just questioning the divinity of Torah, you lose your place in the world to come. This is a more generous view. And by the way, it's not just because you're skeptical, I don't think you're losing your place. It's when you make that as a claim. But Rabbi Yishmael is saying, no, it's not quite that stark. It's not quite that stringent. It's really only when you turn away from God and worship idols or do activities that even though you might think it's idolatry, but it is idolatry, that you would lose your place. Apropos Torah study, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha says, anyone who studies Torah and does not review it is comparable to a person who sows and does not reap. Rabbi Yehoshua says, anyone who studies Torah and causes himself to forget it is similar to a woman who gives birth and buries her newborn child. Is that something? You have to review what you learn. You have to keep learning if you're going to have a chance to hold on to what you're learning. So if you just learn a little and then forget it because you don't keep learning, it's a perishable body of knowledge, right? You have to always be working on it. Apropos Torah study, what I just said. Rabbi Kiva says, now we're on 99b. Sing every day, meaning review your studies like a song that you sing over and over. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avudimi says, from what verse is this derived? It is stated, the hunger of the laborer labors for him, for his mouth presses upon him. Proverbs 16:26, i.e. he exhausts his mouth through constant review and study. He labors in Torah in this place, this world, and his Torah labors for him in another place, the world to come. Rabbi Lot, right? Beautiful, right? Your Torah that you learn in this world is working for you in the world to come. Rabbi Lazar says, every man was created for labor. As it is stated, man is born for toil, Job 5:7. Based on this verse, I do not know whether he was created for toil of the mouth, meaning speech, or whether he was created for the toil of labor with his hands. So when the verse states, for his mouth presses upon him, Proverbs 16:26, you must say that he was created for toil of the mouth, right? The learning process. And still, I do not know with regard to the toil of the mouth, whether it is for the toil of Torah or for the toil of conversation. So when the verse states, this Torah scroll shall not depart from your mouth in Joshua 1:8, so then you must say that he, right, mankind, was created for the toil of Torah. And what is the meaning of what Rava said? All bodies are like receptacles to store items until use. Happy is one who is privileged, who is a receptacle for Torah, right? Happy is the person who makes himself or herself a vessel for Torah. How do you become a vessel for Torah? By constantly learning Torah. The verse states, he who commits adultery with a woman lacks understanding. Proverbs 6:32. So Reish Lakish says, this is a reference to one who studies Torah haphazardly, who is like an adulterer, who sins with other women haphazardly. As it is stated about the words of Torah, for it is a pleasant thing if you keep them with your belly, let them be established on your lips. Proverbs 22:18, and this means keep the Torah always available, right? Have a Torah in every room. You know, when you got that instinct to go spend some time on Instagram, better you should reach for a Torah, or at least some kind of sefer of Torah study. The sages taught in a baraisa that with regard to the verse. But the person who, the sages taught in a baraisa that with regard to the verse, quote, but the person who acts high-handedly, whether he is born in the land or a stranger, that person blasphemes the Lord. Numbers 15:30. So now we're going to define what is a person who acts high-handedly with the Lord. This is a reference to Menashe ben Hezekiah, king of Israel, who would sit and teach flawed interpretations of Torah narratives. And Menashe said, right? So Menashe was spent a lot of time. Menashe was a king who had a very long rule in Israel, and for 22 years he was an apostate, an apicorus, an idolater, leading the nation astray. Terrible, terrible sin. Then he made tshuva. He became a Baal tshuva, and he tried to make up for what he had done. The problem is it wasn't just him, partying and eating non-kosher foods. It's that as a king, he caused all his subjects, the nation of Israel, to sin. And that's, exponentially larger sin than just sinning yourself. And so we've seen before, and at the beginning of this tractate, of this chapter, it says that Menashe does not have a place in the world to come. But some sages will argue with that because he made the tshuva. But, it's we're not. He might have lost. He might well have lost his place in the world to come. So this is the Menashe we're talking about. So Menashe said, but did Moses need to write only insignificant matters that teach nothing? Right? So he's saying that his proof that the Torah is not divinely inspired is that there's a lot of kind of seemingly insignificant phrases that aren't about what is the law and how do we keep the law, but kind of earlier in the Torah that just seem to be, from his point of view, superfluous. And now the Gemara will show that, well, they're not superfluous at all. And so what's Menashe's example of something that is superfluous in the Torah? Genesis 36:22. And Lotan's sister was Timnah. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, the son of Esau, right? Which has nothing to do with the Jewish people. At Genesis 36:12. Or another one. And Reuben went in the days of the wheat harvest, and he found the Dudayim in the field, right? This is going to lead to the conversation between Rachel and Leah, where Leah is having babies and Rachel is not, and Rachel is trying to figure out how she can have babies, and she asks, for Leah's oldest boy, Reuben, these flowers, these mandrakes sometimes in English, that he brings in from the field. So according to Menashe, King Menashe, that phrase doesn't teach anything. So then a divine voice, right, a voice from heaven emerged and said to him, you sit and speak against your brother, you slander your own mother's son. These things you have done. And should I have kept silence, you would imagine that I was like you, but I will reprove you and set the matter before your eyes. That's from Psalm 50. The verses in the Torah are not empty matters with regard to which you can decide whether they are important or not. And about Menashe ben Hezekiah, it is stated explicitly in the text of tradition, the prophets, woe unto them who draw iniquity with cords of vanity and sin as with a cart rope. Isaiah 5:18. So what is the meaning of the phrase, as with a cart rope? And Rabbi Asi says this is a reference to the evil inclination. There's another reason why today is a key DAF. Right here is one of the most famous sayings in the Talmud. So there's two very, very well-known passages right here on the same page. This is the second one. And this is about the evil inclination, right? Every person's urge to sin. Right? So what is this? Sorry. It's making me bananas. Okay. Woe unto them who draw iniquity with cords of vanity and sin as with a cart rope. So what is the meaning of the phrase as with a cart rope? Rabbi Asi says this is a reference to the evil inclination. Initially, it seems like a spider's thread. And ultimately, it seems like a cart rope, right? Meaning you can pretty much figure out the metaphor, but in the beginning, a sin comes your way and you could take it or leave it. You decide to try it, but you could just as easily have not done it. You do the sin, it's like, ooh, wow, that was fun. I want to do that again. And then it becomes an addictive, self-destructive behavior that is not tied to you with a flimsy spider's thread that you could have easily broken at the beginning, but it becomes tied to you with a cart rope that you have to labor mightily to, separate yourself from sin once it becomes habit, right? So the evil inclination begins like a spider's thread and becomes like a cart rope. Menashe began by mocking a few verses, and ultimately he violated the entire Torah, right? He started by saying, there's a few phrases that seem silly to me. He said that really, he was a skeptic, really, because then if he wasn't bound by the Torah, which he's dismissing with his skepticism, well, then he can sleep with whoever he wants, he can eat whatever he wants, he can work whenever he wants, etc., right? The people, who have all these intellectual problems with the Torah, maybe what they really want is just to feed their evil inclination. So Menashe began by mocking a few verses and ultimately violated the whole Torah. So the Gemara asks, with regard to that verse that we came to discuss, in any event, the ones that he said have no meaning or don't have any importance in the Torah, what is their significance? He must be wrong. So what is the significance of these verses that Menashe quoted? And Lotan's sister was Timnah. Well, the Gemara explains that Timnah was the daughter of kings, as it is written, the chief of Lotan in Genesis 36:29, and the chief of Timnah in Genesis 36:40. And each chief is a member of a monarchy, albeit without a crown. And that is why they are called a chief and not a king, but they're monarchs. Timnah sought to convert. So she came before Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they did not accept her, right? Because she was a princess who came from big-time idolaters. They think that maybe they thought she wasn't sincere, and they rejected her. And this is going to cause tremendous problems for them and the Jewish people for all time. Right? She came before Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they did not accept her. She went and became a concubine of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, and said, referring to herself, it is preferable that she will be a maidservant for this nation, and she will not be a noblewoman for another nation. Ultimately, Amalek, the son of Eliphaz, emerged from her. And Amalek attacked us when we left Egypt. Amalek eventually, gave rise to Haman, who tried to destroy the entire Jewish people in the book of Esther. And some would say that at least spiritually, if not directly, Hamas is a descendant of Amalek. So Amalek has been a persecutor of the Jewish people throughout our history. And where did Amalek come from? This woman Timnah, who sought to convert and was turned away. Emerged from her, and that tribe afflicted the Jewish people. And what is the reason that the Jewish people were punished by suffering at the hand of Amalek? It is due to the fact that they should not have rejected her when she sought to convert. Therefore, that verse is very significant. Menashe thought it was just some meaningless verse. And Reuven, who went out in the days of the wheat harvest, with the episode of the mandrakes. So Rav, the son of Rabbi Yitzchak, says that Rav says from here it can be even of small items, as rather than taking wheat, Reuven took only these ownerless mandrakes. And the verse continues, and he found the mandrakes in the field. And the Gemara asks, what are mandrakes? Here, that's how they're often translated as mandrakes, but let's go back to the Hebrew, dudayim. So the Gemara asks, what are dudayim? So Rav says they are a plant called yavruche. And Levi says they are violets. And Rabbi Yonason says they are civiske. Apropos the significance of Torah study, Rabbi Alexandri says anyone who engages in the study of Torah for its own sake, Torah lishma, right, just for the sake of learning, introduces peace into the heavenly entourage above and into the earthly entourage below. One who studies Torah just because God said you should learn Torah adds to the peace of the world. Not only this world, but also the upper world. As it is stated, or let him take hold of my stronghold, Ma'uzi, that he may make peace with me, and he shall make peace with me. Isaiah 27:5. One who observes the Torah, which is called Oz, introduces peace even before the presence of God, as it were. Rav says it is as though he built a palace of heaven above and of earth below. As it is stated, and I have placed my words in your mouth, and I have covered you in the shadow of my hand to plant the heavens and lay the foundations of the earth, and say to Zion, you are my people. Isaiah 51:16. One who has the word of God placed in his mouth through Torah study has established heaven and earth. Rabbi Yochanan says, one who engages in Torah study also protects the entire world. As it is stated, and I have covered you in the shadow of my hand. And Levi says he also advances the coming of the redemption, as it is stated, and say to Zion, you are my people. Reish Lakish said, with regard to anyone who teaches Torah to the son of another, to somebody else's son, the verse ascribes him credit as though he formed that student. As it is stated, and Abram took Sarai, his wife, and the souls that they formed in Haran. Genesis 12:5. They are given credit for forming the students to whom they taught Torah. Forming, like creating, like giving birth to them. Right? Like when you bring somebody under the wings of Torah who is disconnected from Torah, it's almost like you're a second father to them, or a second mother. They are given credit for forming, and Rabbi Elazar says, it is as though he fashioned, asa'an, the words of Torah themselves. As it is stated, observe the words of this covenant, ve'asitem otam, Deuteronomy 29:8, indicating that studying the Torah is like fashioning it. And Rava says it is as though he fashioned himself. As it is stated, ve'asitem otam, do not read vasitem otam as, and you shall fashion them. Rather, read it as vasitem atem, meaning you shall fashion yourself. When you learn Torah, just for the sake of learning Torah, you rebuild yourself. And I will testify that that is true. Rabbi Abahu says, with regard to anyone who causes another to engage in a matter of a mitzvah, the verse ascribes him credit as though he performed it himself. As it is stated, and the Lord said to Moses, and your rod with which you struck the river, take in your hand and go. Exodus 17:5. And was it Moses who struck the river? But wasn't it written explicitly in Exodus 7:19 that Aaron struck the river? Rather, that verse serves to say to you, anyone who causes another to engage in a matter of a mitzvah, a commandment, the verse ascribes him credit as though he performed it himself. The Mishnah teaches that those who have no share in the world to come includes an apikoros. So Rav and Rabbi Hanina both say, this is one who treats his Torah scholar with contempt. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi say, this is one who treats another with contempt before a Torah scholar. Right? So in other words, so either an apikoros is somebody who treats a Torah scholar with contempt, or it means somebody who just treats a fellow Jew with contempt in the presence of a Torah scholar. So the Gemara says, well, granted, according to the one who says that one who treats another person with contempt before a Torah scholar is the apikoros mentioned in the Mishnah. So then one who treats a Torah scholar himself with contempt is characterized as one who interprets the Torah inappropriately due to his lowering of the status of a Torah scholar. But according to the one who says that one who treats the Torah scholar himself with contempt is the apicorus, mentioned in the Mishnah, so then how would he characterize one who interprets the Torah inappropriately? Like, what individual does such a person conduct himself? He is like Menashe, the son of Hezekiah, who would teach flawed interpretations of Torah narratives. He was an authority because he was the king. He pretended to know a lot of Torah and then was a skeptic and disparaged the Torah in the eyes of the people. It was a terrible, terrible sin. And there are those who teach this dispute with regard to the latter clause of the Baraisa. From here, Rabbi Lazar Hamodai said, one who interprets the Torah inappropriately has no share in the world to come. Rav and Rabbi Hanina say this is one who treats a Torah scholar with contempt. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi say this is one who treats another with contempt in front of a Torah scholar. So the Gemara analyzes and says, granted, according to the one who says that one who treats a Torah scholar himself with contempt is the one mentioned in the Baraisa who interprets the Torah inappropriately. So then one who treats another with contempt before a Torah scholar is characterized as the apicorus mentioned in the Mishnah. But according to the one who says that one who treats another with contempt before a Torah scholar is the one mentioned in the Baraisa who interprets the Torah inappropriately, so how would he characterize the apicorus who's mentioned in the Mishnah? Like whom does he conduct himself? So Rav Yosef says it is referring to one who conducts himself like those who say, in what manner have the sages benefited us with all their Torah study? They read the Bible for their own benefit, and they study the Mishnah for their own benefit, so that they would have power and prestige, or maybe even get paid. And they're not learning Torah for the sake of learning Torah. It's not true, but somebody who says that and discredits and disparages the sages in that way is either one who speaks inappropriately about Torah or is the apicorus, right? And we're sort of arguing which is the more severe classification. So Abaye said to him, that person who questions the benefit provided by sages is also in the category of one who interprets the Torah inappropriately, since with that statement he repudiates the Torah itself. As it is written, if not for my covenant, I would not have appointed day and night, the laws of heaven and earth. Jeremiah 33:25, right? The Lord created the whole universe as a place where the Torah would be given into the world and people would learn and follow the precepts of Torah, right? And remember, because they're the 7 Noahide commandments, this applies to all human beings. Now, the external covenant of the Torah is responsible for maintaining the existence of the entire world. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, from here too conclude the same concept from it. As it is stated, if I find in Sodom 50 just men, right, righteous men, within the city, then I will spare the entire place for their sake. Genesis 18:26. So this teaches that the righteous protect the place where they reside. So rather, the apicorus mentioned in the Mishnah is referring to one who conducts himself like one who sits before his teacher, and a halacha that he learned from another place happens to fall into his consciousness, and the student says, this is what we say there. And he does not say deferentially before his teacher, this is what the master, right? Again, speaking to your teacher in the third person as a mark of respect, right? So the student who's learning with his teacher and he thinks of something has to be very respectful, because probably where did he get that? He probably learned it from his master earlier. He just can't remember when quite he heard it, but he should be that deferential and say, this is what the master said, even if he did not learn that matter from his teacher. And Rava said the term apicorus is referring to one who conducts himself like those from the house of Binyamin the doctor, who say, in what manner have the sages benefited us with all the Torah study? Never have they permitted a raven for us, nor have they prohibited a dove for us. They merely tell us matters stated explicitly in the Torah. Now we're on page 100a. I'm almost done. Questions or comments, get them in now. And this is, again, a skeptic talking. It's like, well, the sages say this and say that, say this and say that. But really, at the end of the day, they're just telling us to follow laws that are already in the written Torah. They haven't added anything. Obviously, it's not true. But a skeptic might say that, and then he is one who is risking losing his place in the world to come. And the Gemara relates with regard to Rava, when they would bring a possible treifa, right, a non-kosher item, because it came from an animal that would have died anyway within 12 months, so its slaughter is not a slaughter. When they would bring a possible treifa from the house of Binyamin before him, when he would see in it a reason to permit its consumption, Rava would say to them, see that I am permitting a raven for you, as this is an animal that appeared to be forbidden, because people thought it might be a treifa. And when he would see in it a reason to prohibit its consumption, Rava would say to them, see that I am prohibiting a dove for you. Meaning, you're getting tremendous value from having a sage around you, because you wouldn't have known that you could or could not eat this food. So Rav Papa says, the Apicorus mentioned in the Mishna is referring to one who conducts himself like one who says, those sages with contemptuous overtones, right? Those who mock the sages. And the Gemara relates that Rav Papa himself forgot in one instance and said, like those sages. And he observed a fast to achieve atonement for expressing himself in this manner. And the Gemara relates, Levi bar Shmuel and Rav Huna bar Chia were mending mantles for the sacred scrolls of the school of Rav Yehuda. And when they reached the scroll of Esther, they said, this scroll of Esther does not require a mantle, as it is not as significant as the other sacred scrolls. And Rav Yehuda said to them, a statement of that sort also seems to express irreverence, like the irreverence typical of an apicorus. You should not have referred to the scroll of Esther like that. It is a scroll. You shouldn't have even said this scroll in a way that might be considered unrespectful. Rav Nachman says an apicorus is one who calls his teacher by his name and does not call him rabbi. As Rabbi Yochanan said, for what reason was Gehazi punished? It is due to the fact that he called his teacher by his name. As it is stated, and Gehazi said, my lord the king, this is the woman, and this is her son, whom Elisha revived. Elisha the prophet. He should have said, Elisha the prophet, or my teacher Elisha, my master Elisha, some term of respect, and he didn't do that, and he ended up getting punished. Okay, a few comments. On page 99. Yes, so first of all, we're praying for James Roth, member of our class, who's in rehab and recovering. James, may you have a refuah shlema, a complete and speedy recovery, and we all say amen. Bill, what's the line on quibbling about a given inference from the sages, though? Say a person says the Torah came from heaven, both written and oral, but the sages got a particular ruling wrong. You should still keep the law the way that the sages teach it, though, because they are sages, and it is God's place to set them right, not ours. Now, based on what we've established before regarding the rebellious elder, that should be acceptable dissent, but could it still lose you the share in the world to come? Again, there were a lot of different views here, but I think that the general theme for sure is let us not be contemptuous. Let us not be skeptical for skeptic's sake, right? And there's a big difference between one of the sages, disagreeing with one of the other sages, and us just saying, yeah, that doesn't sound right to me, about something that a sage spent his whole lifetime studying. That would be quite different. Yosef, false humility is also a flaw as bad as pride. Maybe with regard to when it said if you know some Torah, you have an obligation to teach it, right? So somebody who says, well, who am I to teach, could be stopping that process. Very good. Sharon, is one who studied Torah for the purpose of teaching Torah comparable to one who studied Torah lishma? Yes, right? Because somebody who's studying it to teach it is saying Torah is worth teaching. Torah is worth learning, right? Because it's an important thing to do. So I would say yes. I could be wrong, but I would say yes. Bill, I find myself speculating about the edge cases again. Suppose a person said most Torah scholars study it for its own sake, but I've known a few for whom it was just a job. Is that acceptable? After all, many of us have had the misfortune of encountering spiritual leaders who candidly got into it not because they felt a great passion for God, but because they thought it was a good gig. Yeah, and there maybe we're talking about what is a Torah scholar, right? I mean, in the context of the Gemara, right, we're talking about sages and people who are studying to become sages, but who are in it all the way. And not just for the sake of, having a mantle in the community, but really, going in deep. I think they would also say not all of them were as worthy as that. And maybe there were some fakers, and maybe there were some that were just trying to, acquire that prominence, and they were in it for the wrong reason. And so they weren't learning and teaching for Torah's sake. So that would be problematic. And if you're, but now as we, as like non-Torah scholars, are going to accuse one Torah scholar of being that way, maybe it's not our place to do that. Let the Torah scholars way above him make those kind of critiques. Maybe not us. But again, in terms of losing a place in the world to come, I think it has to be much more of a pattern of being that kind of skeptic and apicorus, and not being humble, and not saying, I could be wrong, and if I am, I'm very sorry. That kind of thing. If that's not part of it, then that could become the pattern that could cause a person to lose their place in the world to come. I'm not a rabbi. I'm not a Torah scholar like any of these guys. None of them. I'm nowhere near. I'm just giving over what I can, and leaning on Rav Steinsaltz. But I do at least try to have that attitude of reverence for the text and for the sages, and I hope I can communicate that with our class, our esteemed class, every day. That's what I've got for us today, and with God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow, Wednesday, at the regular Wednesday time, 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a great night.